Hi, this is Denise Matthew, and today I'm going to make these leaf style scroll earrings. It's basically just two pieces of wire that are wired together, and then you just add a few gemstones or crystals, whatever you prefer. These earrings measure about 1.5 inches from the top of the ear wire to the bottom, but you could make them bigger or smaller based on what you want to do. There's a lot of versatility in the design. If you notice this one, I put the scroll to the off side and then I put some bralettes on the side as well. It takes a little bit of time to do the wiring, but I think it's worthwhile in the long run. So let's get started. I'm working with a 3-inch piece of 18 gauge wire, and that will be the bottom part of the leaf. And all you're going to do is just bend it in the center and then just kind of squeeze that a little bit to make sort of a point. I like to use a ring mandrel to shape the bottom part of the earring, but if you don't have it, you could use a dowel or whatever you have on hand. You want to leave your point intact, but you also want to bring those two wires together so they meet. And you don't have to worry if it's not perfect in the beginning because you're going to have time to adjust it as you go. So now you're just going to make two small loops on each end of the wires. If possible, try and keep them about the same size. Once you've made your loops, then you can start to curve the wires outwards. And if you notice, I'm curving the wires outwards, but I'm also bringing the two loops closer together because eventually those two loops will cross over. If you want, you can use a mandrel or whatever you're using to reshape it again so that you get a nice shape. If you want to hammer it to wire harden it as well as give it some texture, this would be the time to do it. To make this scroll, I'm using 2 inches of 18 gauge wire, and I'm just going to start to curl the end of it, just a really loose curl. I like to use my fingers just to slowly make it into an S shape. And then you can start to curl the other end. Since you want the scroll to fit in the leaf part of your earring, you need to check it against the leaf part to make sure it's going to fit. Once you have the scroll the way you want it, this would be the time to hammer it if you want to do that. If not, you can just move on to the next step. I'm working with a foot of 26 gauge wire. You want to make about 3 or 4 wraps at the top of your leaf frame so that you can attach the scroll to it. And don't worry if the wire slides down your frame because you can always push it back into place once you have it on there. I find it easier to use my pliers for this part of putting the wire on. Once you have the wire on, this is when you can push the loops together so that they're overlapping. Now you're going to put your scroll right below the loops and start to attach it to the leaf part. So just put the wire through the scroll and then start to take the wire around the loops. Do about 2 or 3 times. And then you're going to come back down and start to wrap around the top of the scroll again, just on the other side of where you just started. You just need to do about 1 or 2 more wraps on the other side just to secure it. And then when you have as many wraps as you want, you can trim back the wire. Then you're going to do the exact same thing you did before, just attaching the wire with about 3 or 4 wraps. But this time you're going to attach the wire to the scroll inside. Now you're going to thread on your bead. I'm working with a 3mm ruby rondelle. After your bead's on, you're just going to wrap it right below the bead onto the scroll. You're going to wrap about 2 times around the scroll just to secure the bead. Then you're going to take your wire and go right around the bead, just kind of giving it a little bit of a frame with the wire. You can wrap as much or as little as you like. It's really a personal choice on what it looks like. I usually do about 3 or 4 wraps. When you've wrapped as much as you want, then you're going to add the next bead. I'm using a 5mm amethyst rondelle. And you're going to attach it exactly the same way as you did the original bead, just a couple wraps below it, and then as many wraps around it as you like. And you can use your fingernail to push the wire between the beads as you go along. When you've wrapped as much as you want, then you can add the last bead. And you're going to attach it exactly the same way as you did the other 2 beads. I like to use my pliers to adjust the beads to make sure they're standing up so they're easier to wrap. When you've wrapped as much as you want around the bead, then you're going to start to wrap down the scroll. The reason you're wrapping down the scroll is because you want to get closer to the tip of the leaf so you can attach the bottom of the scroll to it. Once you get close to the tip, then you're going to just take that wire and you're just going to attach the scroll right to the tip of the other frame so that the 2 are secure. And what that means is you're going to wrap the wire around the scroll as well as the frame. I did about 5 or 6 wraps, but you could do more or less based on what you want to do. When you've done as many wraps as you like, you can trim back the wire and make any adjustments you want to make. Then I'm going to add 2 4mm jump rings and the ear wire. There is a front and back to this earring, so when you're adding the ear wire, just keep that in mind so that the earring will face forward. So that completes the tutorial. I hope you liked it. If you did, please like, share, subscribe, and comment. We'll see you next time. Thanks for coming. Bye for now.